Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm very happy to be here for the second webinar, Relationship Intelligence. This is really fantastic. I really like what we're doing. Particularly, this particular series is all about communicating. And I like the word intelligence, because it suggests that what we do, and particularly as it relates to our relationships, that we enter into them and we maintain them with consciousness. And that requires using our intellect. And of course, using knowledge, sound knowledge. And for us as Muslims, knowledge based upon the the Quran and the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So this is our overarching principle. All right, is that we do what we do, we try to do as often as we can with intelligence, with consciousness. So I want to just quickly, maybe just a couple of minutes, just kind of recap what we did our last webinar for those of you perhaps that were not with us or did not catch it. Our last webinar, we talked about accountability. That the fact that, as we know that from the Messenger of Allah through an authentic hadith, that we're going to be held accountable for our tongues, for what we say. And he held his tongue, because the companions were asking him about it. Will we be held accountable? He said, yes. And some people will be, dragged into hellfire, because of what they have said with their tongues. So what we are trying to do and what we hope to achieve, inshallah, with these webinars is to give some tips, some techniques, some thoughts, some things for us to do and to practice that help us to have good relationships with our loved ones, whether it's our spouse, our children, our parents, our siblings, our colleagues, whomever it may be, and that we are communicating with them in such a way that is uplifting as opposed to demeaning. Too many times, unfortunately, I hear people using language that is very, very demeaning, and particularly when it's directed toward the ones that we love most, like our spouses and our parents and our children. This is completely unacceptable to us as Muslims. We want to use those words, again, that are uplifting, those words that help to, to inspire the other ones. And also that brings down the temperature when things get a little tough. Now, we're not suggesting in any way, any of what we may say is that we're not going to have difficulty in our relationships in terms of communication. We're going to have arguments. I don't know of anyone who gets away or who does not have arguments. So let's say, for instance, with your spouse or your loved one. But the key is that when we do have such arguments, that they are civil, that they are devoid, again, of demeaning words. They are devoid of harsh words. They are devoid of being rude. Because we can argue, we can debate, we can go back and forth in a really civil way. And we can do it in such a way that helps to bring the best out of both ourselves and the person that we are having this interaction with. All right. So we have an overall arching theme called sticks and stones. So we said that there was a nursery rhyme that I remember. I'm old enough to remember this little nursery rhyme called sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never harm you. And we said that this little nursery rhyme, we used to be told as kids, whenever somebody was hurting us or bullying us, that, don't worry about the sticks and stones, et cetera, et cetera. They're not going to harm you. That's not exactly true because words do harm us, right? And that was what we were just saying in the opening comments. So, but at the same time, again, we want to find the right words to use, all right, so that they are not harming to ourselves. Because here's the thing too, that keep in mind, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, is that when we speak, and those words leave our mouths, we cannot take them back. This is why it has to be relationship intelligence. We have to think before we speak. It kind of reminds me, have you ever been angry and upset and you're at your keyboard or you're on your iPad or on your phone and you need to respond to someone, you know, have you ever sent that send button or that little send symbol and then say, oops, I didn't mean to do that? Sometimes you can go in and you can delete it before the person reads it or whatever. But sometimes it's if it's with an email or something, it might be more difficult or you may not know how to do that. The point is, it's done. When you're speaking directly one-on-one to someone, you don't have that opportunity. I may be able to do that on my device, but I can't do that if I'm face to face to you. So if I say something ugly to you directly, too late. It's too late. I may say I'm sorry, but I've already hurt you, have I not? So again, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me. This is not an exactly a truism. It makes a point again for us as little kids not to, listen to what other people say. But the reality is words can harm. So anyway, so that was the overarching thing. And the other thing that we said that in last month's webinar, we talked about how to modify behavior with our loved ones, particularly when we're trying to correct behavior. And we gave a little tip that the Prophet ﷺ used with his companions. I know we've all learned how that, when you're correcting someone, you praise them, you tell them how good they are, and then you go on to talk about the deficiencies, right? And oftentimes, what unfortunately many of us, we do, is that we say, you're good at such and such and such, or you did that very well. But we know when we hear that, but, we can, the adrenaline changes. Our body changes a little bit, doesn't it? Because we know that's what's coming behind that but is not going to be very pleasant. If you're sitting in front of your supervisor and they say, but, oh boy, here we go now. Okay. So we said that the Prophet did not do that. And we won't go through the entire example, but he used an example. He didn't use the word but, he used the word if. And you can look it up, and there are many synonyms for but. If is one of them. I think rather maybe one of them, however, but if is probably one of the better ones to use. And he used that with one of his companions. And in his using that, his companion changed behavior. Or actually, not so much that he changed behavior, because another was when he was talking about Ibn Omar, he added upon his goodness. He started doing more good acts. Actually, in this case, it was Qiyam al-Layl. He was trying to get Ibn Omar to perform more Qiyam al-Layl. And they said that after that point, he was always seen praying Qiyam al-Layl. So that was just that tip about how to use that. And we gave some other tips as well. You can go back and review that particular webinar, inshallah. So we just wanted to go to recap that accountability is the big thing. All right. So for today, inshallah, this is to be very brief, but we want to give tips. So the idea is not to excuse me, overload you and overwhelm you with things, but just some tips that you can use in your day-to-day life and your day-to-day interactions. So today's webinar is the power and art of conscientious listening. So now you say, well, wow, I thought we were talking about communication. Well, yeah, communication takes other forms other than just verbal. It also is, listening is a component of communication. And this is something that we have to learn. Okay. So in the first slide, excuse me, we want to, of course, we always want to start off referencing it with Islam and with the history of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we say that there's a prophetic model. Okay. And we use the example of, and we won't read the entire hadith for the sake of time, but in the prophetic model, there was a Sahabi who said that when he talked with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was as if he was the only one in the room and the only one he was talking to. Subhanallah. So I want to ask you a question. Have you ever had interactions with people that you really love being in their presence and you love really having communication with? If that's the case, I don't want you to think about such persons, by the way. I want you to reflect upon that later on. Who is it that I really enjoy having dialogue with? It's likely, if you do, it's likely because they are a good listener. And you may not be consciously aware of that, but subconsciously, you know, this person is paying attention to me. And this is what the Sahabi said. The Sahabi said that the Prophet was paying specific attention to me. He wasn't looking around. He wasn't fiddling with his device like we're going to talk about it in a few moments. He was paying attention to me. We're going to talk about those things that, you know, indicate that you're paying attention. All right. All right. So this is the prophetic model. So we want to be able to, in ourselves, is that when we're having dialogue with a person, it would be nice if they felt like, oh, wow, this is the only person that's talking to me. And particularly when it comes to spouses, you know, particularly with our spouses, we need to give that kind of attention to our spouses. And when we can't, you know, when we can't, what we need to do, and this is actually not a part of some of the material in the slides here, but I'll just share this with you. So we need to be honest and fair with our partners, you know, or with our loved ones. So if you can't give the attention that they deserve, let them know that you want to be able to do that. Say, you know what? I really want to hear what you have to say. I want to give you my undivided attention. But at the moment, I really need to take care of such and such. Can this wait, or is this something that is urgent that you need to share with me now? Now, if they say most likely 90% of the time, they'll say it can wait. If it's something that's urgent, it's urgent. And probably what you have to do is maybe not as urgent. Then you have to say, well, listen, that can wait, inshallah. And then you give them your undivided attention. But this is better than, you know, saying, oh, okay, what do you got to say? What is it that you want? But our mind is somewhere else. Our eyes are somewhere else. Everything is someplace else other than in the moment with our loved one. So don't be afraid to say, I can only, is this something? Let them know I want to give it to you. First of all, I want you to have what you deserve. You should use that kind of language out there. I want to have, because they do. They deserve your undivided attention. So we're talking about the power and the art. So when we talk about the power, so look at what that Sahabi felt. SubhanAllah. That's power. That's a real power. And then there's an art to it. And these are going to be some of the techniques that we talk about. So when people want to talk to you, when they see you coming, they're not running away, you know? So, alhamdulillah. So we want to, in our behavior, see if we can embody the methodology and the way and the character of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because as we know, he was the best example. You see, unfortunately, we don't hear a lot of this in our khutbahs, of course, right? I mean, there might be some videos or some talks online about these kinds of things. But in my view, there's not enough emphasis given upon this. And there are lots of problems we have in our communities with people in our relationships. And much of it has to do is with how we speak. I was, not to get off too much of an intangible, one night a brother was giving me a ride home from the masjid. SubhanAllah, he was talking about an ex-wife. I could see why she was ex. I understand not why she was ex. I'm not saying that he was at fault, but boy, my God, the language she was using towards her, about her. I mean, she wasn't present, but if he was angry, he was vehement, and if he was expressing any of that, any part of that with his ex-wife, I guess I would have said, I want to get out of here too. Again, I don't know exactly what happened to them, but I do know that what I heard that night was not conducive to a good relationship. And that's why I really believe why a lot of relationships, that one of the things that contributes to the breakdown is the failure to communicate in a good way, in an honest way as well. And back to saying, listen, can we hold that? Can you hold that for a few moments? Please, because there's something else I need to attend to, because I want to give you the time that you deserve. That's also about being honest. Okay. All right. So we talked about the prophetic model and how the Prophet ﷺ gave undivided attention to his companion. And we saw that in many times that he would be, people would catch him on the way, on the road, so to speak, or through the streets of Medina, and he would stop and he would listen to them, attend to them, men, women, and children, by the way. All right. So what we want to talk about is body language. Okay. We want to talk about body language. Because this is a key. This is another important um, uh, uh, component of our of communication is the body language that we show. All right. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, which we talk about a lot, we young people, you young people, I'm not too young anymore, is about multitasking. Multitasking. Many of us, we're really proud that we can multitask. Alhamdulillah. And perhaps you can, and I'm sure that you can. And maybe that's true when it comes to our careers and for our professional life. And we got all kinds of balls, whatever that we're juggling all at one time. And I won't doubt that you can do that. I think I used to be able to do that, when I was 30 or 15 or 20 or 30 years younger, in my career. But when it comes to relationships, I don't think that really works very well, to be honest with you. I don't think you can multitask and listen conscientiously to your loved one when you're multitasking. All right. So, because you got different things going on at one time. So here we say what? Put, you know, um, put your devices down. But maybe you say you're multitasking. Hey, listen, I'm guilty. I am absolutely guilty. My wife has had to tell me a time or two, put your device down, put your phone down. Okay, because I need to talk to you about something. She started the conversation, and I said, okay, you know how we say, okay, where am I looking? Where are my eyes? On my device. And I'm saying, okay, all right? But it's something important that she wants to talk about. So she said, you're not listening to me. How many times have you ever said to say that to somebody? Or has someone said that to you? You're not listening to me. Based upon body language. Okay, not about their ears. You may have heard them talking. It's a difference from hearing something, hearing someone, and listening to someone. When you hear someone, you hear words. You hear words. What my wife did to me one time. So it was really kind of funny. So she was talking to me about something, and I was multitasking, right? Okay, so she went on, and I went on and doing whatever I was doing, claiming that I was listening. I was only hearing. So, so she finally, I looked up. So she said, Muhammad. I said, yeah. She said, what did I say? I said, well, I said, I'm not quite sure. Could you repeat that again? That was very embarrassing. That was really very embarrassing to say, she said, you weren't really listening to me, were you? And one time she said, which was really, really, really crazy. And, which caught me off guard. And then she said, raised the voice. She said, I'm going to jump out of the window out of the second floor. And I'm like, oh, okay. I get the message now. She was joking, of course. Alhamdulillah. But the point was, she had to go to the extreme to say something, of that nature to get my attention. Oh, you're going to jump out of the window. What's going on here? What are you talking about? She was trying to get my attention. So this multitasking idea doesn't work, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, when we're trying to have good, positive, relationships or communication in our relationship. I don't. This is just my personal view from my own experiences. I've been there, done that, got my t-shirt. It doesn't work. All right. So put your devices down, and this is, I think us men are more guilty for this, to be honest with you. The first thing you want to do is pick up the remote in one hand and our device in the other hand, and you're clicking and searching and doing all these kinds of things. But here's the key. I mean, and if you're a lady and you need to teach, your loved one, your male loved one, let him know, sweetheart, to actively listen, to be an actively listener, you'll need to put the devices down, okay? To be an active listener, you'll need to put the devices down and just be quiet and allow him to put the devices down, okay? And then because you're going to have to, sometimes we have to train people how to do things in the best way that uplifts the relationship. You see, here's another thing that sometimes we do that's not good. We get angry with our loved one and we say, okay, you don't care, so I don't care. So we don't bother to make the correction. But we have to make the correction in the right way. You can't say, you don't ever listen to me. You never listen to me. We talked about that last time, using the word never. You never listen to me. Never? Never? Never is a long time. You know, we have to phrase that in a different way. You know, I really wish that you could give me more attention when I have something to share with you. Okay. That's different than saying, because you get upset, you never listen to me. Well, what is that person going to do? That person is going to react likely in the same way that you sent that message, right? You sent a terse message, and that person is likely going to send a terse message back. Social media, terse, 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 rude, rude, rude. That's why I don't do too much social media. Not that kind of discussion and conversation. All right. So the thing is, so you have to think again. This is in relationship intelligence. So now you got to really think about what it is that I want to say and how am I going to say it and how that's going to be received. Now you might say that's going to take too much time. Well, it doesn't really take a lot of time. It does take practice and discipline, but I'd rather for that to take time, some time, okay? Or I'll have that, as we said, that pregnant pause. I'd rather for to have that to go on than I say something out of my mouth, right? That I regret or that causes a big stink. And now we're arguing about something and can't even get to where I wanted to talk about it in the first place. You understand what I mean? So I have this little phrase and maybe we'll get to it. I want you to keep this in mind. You might want to write this down and keep it in mind. So always when you're communicating with someone and things are about to get a little heated, always say to yourself, I have to engage my brain before I put my mouth in gear. Engage brain before putting the mouth in gear. You understand what I mean? Because if you don't, you're going to put your mouth in gear without consciously thinking about what you want to say, relationship intelligence, and then boom. And then you don't even know what were we fighting about in the first place. I don't know. It's not a good thing. All right. So multitasking is not a good thing. Put those devices down. All right. The next thing is turn your body towards your loved one. Okay. So normally, you know, in our relationships with our spouses, we're sitting back in the recliner, the male typically kind of thing. I don't know why that is. We should let our wives sit in the recliner sometimes if she wants to. Anyway, so maybe she's in the adjacent couch or love seat or whatever, and we're facing in the direction of of the TV or whatever it is, or whatever device it is, you know. Uh, and our loved one is trying to talk to us, the wife is trying to talk to us, but our body is facing something else. We're having conversation with a device, with a non-human. That's what we are saying. We're saying this non-human that's in front of me, whether it's my device or whether it's the TV or whatever it is, this is more important to me right now. Because this is where my the person. Yes, dear. Share. It's a simple thing. Now you'll find that a lot of people will reject doing this because sometimes we're a little arrogant. You know what I mean? And it's like, you can't. How dare you tell me what to do or how to do? I can hear you. Say yes. I'm sure you can hear me, dear, but I really want you to listen to me. And I'll know that you're listening. One of the signs that I know that you're listening to me is when you face me. I want to see your smiling and your handsome face. Or if you're male and see your pretty face. All right. See, you got to be a little smart. You got to have a little psychology here. You just can't be upset, because that won't get you in. That won't get you what you want. You need to think about what is it I'm trying to get accomplished here. Because otherwise, you're going to walk away mad. And the more you do that, the more distance and this is the sad part, the more distance you put in the relationship. So I do a little laughing a little bit, a little joking, but this is not funny. because the more often, we do these kinds of things in the negative way, the more, you know, damage, the little crink. It might not be big in the beginning, but more and more we put a little bit of damage into the relationship. And that's not good. And it's hard to get back. It's hard to turn that back. All right. So turn your body towards your loved one. All right. So we'll go to slide 2. So how do I know if and when you're really listening to me? So how do I know? What lets me know that? And see, this is again a part of the training sometimes you might have to do with your loved one. One is the eye contact. And that does mean turning the body because, I mean, you might turn your head, but, you can say to the person, just turn around. If you don't mind, turn your body towards me. I want to see all of you, sweetheart. Okay. So sometimes you have to do things in a kind of a jovial way, to kind of take the temperature down, to make sure things don't get out of hand, to make sure that you know, the one who is sending the message, that you don't, allow yourself to get too, bent out of shape or too upset, so that you don't really upset the other person. And of course, you got to know the person, obviously, that you are talking to. All right. So eye contact is one thing. Look directly at the person. I mean, particularly now we're talking about our loved ones. We're not talking about in the outside world with different cultures and all of that, but we're talking about our spouses, because mostly this is what we are relating to here. When we talk about our spouses or our soon to be spouses or our want to be spouses, we may need to look at them, and have some type of, consistent eye contact, with them, and particularly with our children. If you have children or you have nephews and nieces and, look, oh man, they love that. And this is just a little bit of an aside, but another tip for children, bend down, stoop down, and look at them in the eye, particularly their little children. They love that. Little kids love it because when you're towering over them, and that's kind of an intimidating force for them. But that's something else and another tip for another conversation. Verbal acknowledgement and confirmation. So you can I know you're listening when you're verbally acknowledging what I'm saying. And sometimes what I do, if I want to make sure that the person is listening to me, I will form a question during the dialogue for them to answer. You understand what I mean? Because if you do it and then they say, "Oh, what'd you say?" That means they weren't listening. And probably you already know because their body's probably not towards you. They're probably not looking at you. But one of the good ways to do it, and that's when you say, "See, I'm afraid, you weren't listening to me as I was hoping you would, or you weren't giving this discussion the attention that you would. I would have hoped that you would give this discussion more attention." That's a better way to say it. You see, I'm trying to avoid using negative words. I had hoped you would give this conversation more attention than what is being given right now. Oh, see, it's all about the language and what you say. All right, so we'd say verbal acknowledgement. All right, so what else can we do? Questions of affirmation. Yeah, we talked about this just a little bit. So you can ask questions, to affirm. What did you think about that? Should you think that's a good idea or not? They got to say yes, no, maybe. Okay. That way that keeps them engaged too. Because if you're just talking and talking and talking and talking and talking, and of course another thing, you don't want you want to have some conclusion, to your discussion, and some ending point, so the person doesn't really get bored. All right. So those are those how eye contact. All right, the person's body's toward you. Do some questions of confirmation and affirmation so that you can keep the person engaged in the discussion. All right, the next slide. All right. Oh, so this is really for our men, but the ladies, you can benefit from this and share this. Actually, my wife has told me this maybe more than once. Okay, so one of the things that we men that we're kind of guilty of. See, we see ourselves as the great problem solvers in the house, right? We're gonna solve that problem. Oh, okay. The minute we begin to mention some problem, we've got the solution, we've got the answer, and basically, be quiet and, I got this. But I can remember this distinctly. I can almost tell you the highway we were on, or the street we were on. And my wife was really going on, and she was sharing something. I think it's something that happened at work. Yeah. My wife was a former teacher. Something happened at her school, and, it didn't really kind of, upset her that day, and she was going on. And I got in, and I put on my, my solution cap. And I jumped in and say, well, maybe what you should do is go and tell them and do this and do that. And she said, no, I just need you to listen. I don't need any solutions right now. I just need you to listen. So my brothers, my dear brothers, please understand that oftentimes our wives, our loved ones, they don't want solutions from us. They simply want us to listen. That's really what they want. Just listen. And if you employ all the things that we just talked about, eye contact, body structure, proper body structure, nodding and give verbal acknowledgement that you're listening to them, they're fine. And so when my wife said that, because we were in the car, I mean, I couldn't turn like I would automatically, normally. But then I listened, and then what did she want to do? She just wanted to get it out. She just wanted to get it out and want someone to hear. And who's the best person? I'm her husband. The closest person to her to share these kinds of things will be her husband. And so she just wanted me to listen. So I think this is something that we particularly as men, yeah, she doesn't want you to, she doesn't want a solution from you. It doesn't need a solution from you. Sometimes it's just listen. That's like little kids. And I'm not equating women and kids. Don't get me wrong here. But I'm just saying in terms of sometimes when a little kid comes up and mommy, daddy, grandma, grandpa, whatever they call us, they just want us to listen about their day, what happened, what they did, however ridiculous it may have sounded or dangerous it may have sounded. They just want us to listen. Okay, but that was fine. That was nice. I'm glad you had a good time. But in terms of our adult relationships, and particularly in our male and female relationship, this is very important. And particularly again in our husband and wife or, fiance and whatever that we have, not all the time is a solution. Now, what you could do, I mean, this works either way, whether it's a male or female, whichever way it's going. You can ask, would you like my thoughts about that? And if the person says, no, not really, I didn't really know. I just wanted to listen. Okay, fine. If you don't need my thoughts about it, I'll just be quiet, even though I might have some thoughts about it. Think, you ought to do this, you ought to do that. And sometimes women think, maybe women too. But, we have to be able to understand the dynamics, of the human psyche and psychology. All right. So these are some of the tips. So this is the art and the power of listening. And I assure you, I do believe firmly that if we employ these tips, these techniques, that I think that we will have much better, dialogue and interactions, with our loved ones, inshallah. And next week, rather the next webinar, I'm really excited to talk about another tool that we're going to use. We'll send it out to you, inshallah, that will help us to decide when to engage, to have an argument or to have something to say at all or not. Anyway, but that's coming next, inshallah. Anyway, jazakallah khair. We really appreciate it. You see it up there already, right? There you go. How to determine using the, on a scale of 1 to 10 to know whether or not it's worth even interacting, having a conversation or not, or responding or not. This is a powerful tool. And we'll talk about that in detail. Jazakallah khair. If you have any questions or anything that you would like to add or share, for today, barakallahu fikum, thank you very much. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.